Hello, my name's Randall Meek, and I'm with the Philippines Project, and I'm here with another video, this one about our house. Now, previously I gave you a house tour of the house that we're living in here in Iloilo, and I got a lot of great comments on it. The video's doing really well, and we love the house. But this video is designed, or video is dedicated to the destruction or the demolition of the old house that I had purchased years ago, like in 2009. And this tells just a little bit about it, shows you how the Filipinos go about the demolition process. And it's interesting if you've never seen it done. It was interesting to me, and I'm just amazed at the Filipino workers at how hard they work. So if you're ready, let's watch it. Okay, you can see them. They are demolishing this house just like you might do an interior wall in the United States. I mean, like you might take a big hammer and start knocking sheetrock. Well, this is all concrete and rebar. So this is the house we bought, or I bought back in we bought back in 2009, and it was actually a house that her mom had wanted us to buy. And we were kind of looking for a place. The family was actually living in a bamboo hut at that time. And I had met her mom on a couple different occasions. One time when we come back, and then one time in Singapore when I first met my wife. That's another video. But yeah, so this house sat on a lot in a little subdivision, put air quote subdivision, uh, on the outskirts of Pavia, outside of Iloilo. And her brothers lived in this area, and this house was for sale. So I purchased it back then for like $10,000. The house was old, uh, severe need of a facelift, and yeah, so I mean, it just was what it was. It was a place for them to live, better than what they had. Keep them out of the rain, but it wasn't much of a house. We actually came back and visited it, and in the meantime, between the time I bought it and the time that we visited, they had the famous Typhoon Frank came through this part of the Philippines and absolutely decimated the house. As far as it didn't hurt the structure all that much. I think they may have patched some metal roof or something like that. But what happened was they had a flood, and the floodwaters came in the house and the whole neighborhood. And actually, there were several people lost right in this area. Little babies, old people. I know one lady personally. She lost her husband and a baby. It was a. It's hard to even mention Typhoon Frank around here because it was a devastating time. But they were living in this house at that time. And we got a call. We were sitting at home back in Missouri, and we get a call, and her brother's calling, and the only words he could get out, he just said emergency, and then the phone went dead. So we didn't know anything what was going on. So yeah, so I got on YouTube, got on the weather, got to see what's trying to figure out what's going on around there, and that was kind of a hard thing to do back then. But I figured out that there was a typhoon, and they got back in touch with us probably 10, 12 hours later. And what had happened, the water was rising in the house, and they were asleep, and so they got the family up, and there wasn't quite as many of them back then. There's quite a few of them now, but yeah, they got the refrigerator, and they carried it up the steps, and they all got up on the second floor. Basically, there was just one room on that second floor and kind of a larger patio. But at least they could get out of the floodwaters. I mean, it got 6 foot deep for about a day, and I may be a little bit off on that. I'm not sure how long, but it was a devastating flood here. So anyway, that's the condition that this house is in when you watch this demolition, and you'll see these guys with sledgehammers, and they even take this little piece of PVC pipe about that long, and they'll drive a nail through it, and then they'll take that nail and they'll hit that with a hammer while they hold on to it with that PVC, and they'll bust out little pieces around, and then they'll take a welder and cut that rebar and take out larger chunks. But any large chunk that they have to further break that down. Once it gets down to the ground, they have to further bust that up with a sledgehammer, and you'll see them taking those little tiny rocks about that big, and they're shoveling them into these bags, and then they carry them. They'll lift them up on their shoulder, and they'll carry them off premises and dump them. And some of them they could, potentially, I don't know if they did, but use them in part of the concrete. So yeah, it's a process like you wouldn't believe. And one thing I found out about the Filipino people, I've always loved them ever since I've been coming here. But if they've got work to do, they get about it. I mean, they do. If you're a construction worker, you can see by watching this video, these guys are men of steel. I mean, they're not very big in stature, but well, my two brother-in-laws, I don't know, they're 5 foot tall. But man, I'm telling you what, they're hard as a piece of steel. These guys are, and you can see when they're swinging the sledgehammers and doing all this work, shoveling rock. Just try to shovel some gravel, see what that's like. Let alone do it all day long. And you got young guys out there doing that. You got some older guys. We had a foreman. He's an older guy. He kind of oversaw the demolition, then he oversaw the building. But this whole thing, this whole house was inspired by my mother-in-law. About the time this house is being demolished, she'd come down with pancreatic cancer, and she ended up dying like 7 months later. She didn't even get to see the house being built. But when she got that diagnosis, I said to myself, her life's not gonna just be for nothing. She'd always given everything. Flora's mom, we call her Nanai, and I still refer to her as Nanai now. She's such a big part of our lives even now. She gave everything she had to her kids and her grandkids to a fault. She was a soft touch. She'd fall for a sad story, and she couldn't keep any money. But she was always a giver, and she had a great reputation in the community. And everybody, to know Nanai is to love Nanai. And she was said so many funny things, and she was you just had to know her. She's just a crazy, funny, giving, caring person. She didn't have a bad bone in her body. I bet I've said that a million times about her. She may not have made all the greatest decisions in the world. She didn't have any education. Basically, her whole life she spent as a slave. I mean, basically working for almost nothing, between living with other people and working for them as she grew up, to when she got married. She didn't have any money, and she moved to Singapore to get some money. Then she got her daughter over there to Singapore just to even save the family. I talked to my wife about that last night. They just basically saved the family. These overseas Filipino workers, man, there's something else. They give the money back to the Philippines. But anyway, this house is dedicated to her, and I wanted to give her a legacy of her life. And if you see the house tour, I'm going to try to put a link in the video here. I'm going to try to do that. And so if you're watching this video, you can call it Nanai's house, you can call it whatever, but she was a big part, instrumental in the making and building of this house. And this is just the demolition part. There'll be more videos to come. Thanks again.